Hey mamas, welcome back to the Birthing Bessie blog, where we talk about real topics pertaining to birth, pregnancy, motherhood, partnerships, and just real life. Here on the blog, we don't shy away from talking about the hardships of motherhood. Instead, we validate you, we understand you, and we embrace you with open arms. Today, I want to talk about understanding your birth philosophy. And I want to share with you 3 questions, 3 things for you to reflect on to help you better understand what your birth philosophy is. So, you might be wondering, what is a birth philosophy? Well, philosophy in itself is essentially the fundamental understanding of yourself. So, when we are talking about a birth philosophy, we are talking about how you actually feel and think and understand birth to be in your own experience. And you can have a birth philosophy whether or not you have gone through childbirth before or not. So, getting an idea of what your birth philosophy is really important for a couple reasons. It can help you decide on lots of things as your labor and delivery unfolds and progresses. It can help you pick the care provider that's right for you, and it can really help you understand how you want to be cared for during birth and what type of support you might need. So, let's talk about 3 things to consider when trying to understand your birth philosophy. So, the first question for you to reflect on, it's going to be a very broad question, but it's very intentionally a broad question. I want you to really just think about, write down whatever comes to mind, paint whatever picture is in your head when you ask yourself this question. The question is, how do I feel about birth? When you ask yourself that question and you get clear on what your answer is, that will help you understand what type of support you need leading into your birth to support those feelings that you have about it. So, how do you feel about birth? That could be anything from excited, nervous, scared. Do you think it to be painful? Do you think it to be a big medical event? Do you think it to be really empowering and powerful? There's no wrong answer here. It is truly just understanding how you feel. So ask yourself that question, whether you are thinking through processing it mentally or writing it down or having this conversation with another person. Just be totally honest with yourself. How do you feel about birth? Whatever emotions and thoughts come up, that's okay. And it's good because that helps you get a better understanding of, wow, I didn't realize that I had maybe some anxieties around birth. And now you can think about, okay, what do I need to do to settle these anxieties? What type of support do I need? Do I need to work with a doula? Do I need to get more education? Do I need to have more conversations with my care provider? There's no wrong answer here. Just think, how do I feel about birth? Question number 2 that I want you to think about very much piggybacks off of the first question. So, that first question, how do I feel about birth? Now, the second question that I want you to think about is, why do I feel this way about birth? And more importantly, are these thoughts and ideas and philosophies around birth, are they my own or are they borrowed from somebody else? So, a lot of times, and I'm sure if you are a pregnant person, you have experienced this, but women and other people who have had babies before like to pass down their experience. They like to share with you their experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. If you're pregnant, you've probably witnessed this and experienced it yourself. They want to share their experience. But that kind of can warp our own ideas and thoughts around birth. So, as you reflect on that first question, the very next thing I want you to think about is kind of, why do I feel that way? Is it something I maybe saw on TV, in a documentary, in a movie? Is it something I read? Is this something that was passed down to me from family members, from aunts or your mom or your grandmother? Maybe they didn't have a great experience and you know very well about their poor experience with birth. So you may have answered that first question about how you feel about birth with some emotions of fear and maybe feeling a little scared or anxious about it. So think about, is that because someone has shared something with you with their experience? Or is it something that you have thought of on your own, have wondered, have read, have learned, and that's why you have those types of thoughts around birth? So it's really important to kind of sift through that information. And that can be really hard when you're pregnant. And that can also be such a great benefit of having a doula or being in a childbirth education class, because you can really get down to the facts instead of borrowing other people's beliefs and birth philosophies and experiences. It's really important for you to get clear on what your own thoughts and feelings are. So, question number 2 is, where did these thoughts come from? Do I feel this way about birth as my own story or borrowed from somebody else? And finally, that last question I want you to reflect on is, how do I feel about medical interventions? And with all of these questions, truly, again, the reminder, there is no wrong answer here. This activity and these questions are truthfully just thoughts, things to get you thinking about how you feel about birth. So there's no right or wrong answer here. I want you to think, write, speak, however you're processing this information, do it freely and know that there's no judgment. So, how do you feel about medical interventions? You might say, I have no qualms with any medical intervention at all. Whatever needs to happen, I trust my care provider that they will have my best outcome and interest at heart. And whatever they think is best, medical interventions are fine with me. And you might find yourself on the other end of the spectrum and feeling like, I truly believe, from reflecting on question 1 and 2 here, birth is a natural physiological process that will happen, and I don't need the help of medical interventions, and I'm not interested in that. And you might fall somewhere in between or anywhere along that spectrum. Again, no right or wrong answers. But understanding how you feel a little bit about medical interventions is going to help you paint a picture for how you want things to unfold as your labor progresses. If you are delivering in a medical system, there are lots of interventions that will be available to you, offered to you, maybe even recommended to you. And knowing ahead of time your interest level in those medical interventions is really important. These are all topics that we really dive into in the Empowered Pregnancy membership, especially when we're talking about those interventions themselves. It is a loaded question to say, how do you feel about medical interventions? Again, these questions here for this activity in the purpose of helping you discover what your birth philosophy is, these are broad questions, very intentionally so, just so you can paint a wide, big picture of how you are feeling about birth and about birth in the medical system. Now, in the Empowered Pregnancy membership, we're going to talk about each and every intervention. You're going to have the opportunity to learn about it, to learn about benefits and risks of each, to learn about alternatives and options that you have with each, and really, again, designed to help you understand what fits best for you and your birth philosophy. So if your birth philosophy is more on the physiological and natural side of birth, let's talk through those interventions and talk through the options that make most sense, that align best with you and your natural and unmedicated philosophies. Now, again, if you're someone who's maybe on the other end and you say, I am okay with whatever needs to happen, let's still talk through those so you can know what to expect, so that when you and your care provider make that decision together to embark on an intervention, you know what to expect. You've heard it before and you feel really comfortable with that idea. All right, Mama, again, this is broad and very much designed to be, and I hope that you can take some time to sit down with a pen and paper, or a trusted friend, or even your partner. Take some time to talk through these questions, get an idea of how you feel. And if you're doing this exercise with your partner, it's a great time for them to really think through how they feel about birth, and brings up so many great conversations for you and your partner. And along the way, if you come up with questions for your care provider, that's a plus too. Anything that comes from this, absolutely write that down. And I would love for you to share it with me. If you have questions about any of these things that we just talked about, or any of the interventions that are very broadly mentioned here, definitely reach out. I am here for you every step of the way. You can always slide into my DMs on Instagram at ebbirthing, or you can reach out via email at ebbirthing@gmail.com. Know that I am here for you. Know that I support you. And I would love to know what you think about your own birth philosophy. Share it with me either on Instagram or email. I'd love to hear from you. All right, mamas, until next time.